Let's get this intro going. I don't know if anyone else can hear that. Welcome to the Get Offset podcast. My name is Emily.
And my name is Andrew.
And we are here today with a very special guest.
Hi, I'm Philippe.
You want to introduce yourself? From Caroline Guitar Company. If you've been listening to this podcast for the past several months, you've heard our ad spots.
Yeah, I'm proud to sponsor.
They've been a little unhinged since the beginning. I hope you're okay with that.
What did you just call me?
Unhinged.
I listen to Pod Save America, and their ads for their sponsors are almost like they're negging the sponsor the whole time for like a minute and a half, and I kind of love it. They're like, they're just like,
Yeah.
like simply safe for when you're terrified that people are going to steal all your stuff. Like,
Yeah.
But it's good to see you guys. It's great to see you guys.
Alex, good to
Likewise.
see you. Good to see you. Good to be seen. Good to see. I got Lasik on Thursday, I guess it was.
Bold play. I know it's no glasses today. What is it like waking up?
No glasses.
What's it like waking up in the morning and opening your eyes and being able to see? What is that like?
It's very odd. I've never had that experience except like the one or two times that I maybe broke the rules with contacts just because I really wanted to see what it was like to wake up and see things.
Mm-hmm. And your eyes don't feel
Bad idea. Yeah. You have to peel your eyes open. Yeah.
Oh my God.
That was gross. I think honestly the weirder thing, because my vision was so atrocious that the weirder thing was I took a shower last night and then I could see how I could see like the shower like when I was in it. Like I've never been able to see like the label on the shampoo bottle or like how dirty the shower is.
Yes. Oh my God. Well, seeing how dirty the shower is,
Honestly.
that might be a reason for me to keep wearing glasses.
I know. I keep a little kitchen sink brush with the soap in there, and I like scrub like when I'm like taking my shower. Like I just kind of do that normally, so it's not like the worst. But you look around, and you're like,
Yeah.
this could be cleaner.
So, how long were you out for with the LASIK? You got LASIK, you said, this week?
On Thursday.
Wow. So it is like today is Sunday, and you were already like right back in commission and everything.
I wasn't allowed to look at a screen for 24 hours, so that's why Andrew was allegedly messaging you.
I didn't exactly reveal that I was the one sending the message.
Okay.
I just thought to myself, what would Emily say? And then I made a joke, and then I figured my hand was tipped. But
No, you did. I didn't know. At this point, I do not assume which of you I'm speaking to at any time if I message. Does that make sense? I'm just like, I'm messaging the entity.
Yeah.
And the entity, one of the two will reply, But it's...
let's say 90% of the time it's probably Emily responding, but 90% of the time I'm also either responding or reading.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
I'm curious.
If someone responded to you from Get Offset on Thursday or Friday morning, it was definitely not me.
I'm curious if you had
Oh, you know what? That was my chance, wasn't it?
So-
to really cause some trouble. Yeah, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
oh, no.
Missed opportunity.
I remember reading these studies where they had like they've done these studies and experiments where like men took over women's email accounts and women took over men's email accounts. These? Yeah. And like, it just like all of a sudden the men just get so much pushback and so much asshole behavior that they're like, wow.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you've ever had that experience coming in.
Hey, could I speak to an expert?
I'm sorry?
Yeah.
It's
To an expert here.
Is there a manager around?
I love the Tia from Working Class Music story about how she was working in the guitar department on the phone, and someone said, "Can I talk to a man?" And she's like, "Okay." And then she puts on the intercom and she says, "There's a call for a man in guitars." And someone says, I got this," and just hangs up the phone.
Oh, it's great.
Incredible.
Oh my gosh, can I talk to It's like that. It's like that.
A man in guitars.
Oh my lord! Yeah, it's like it's like the Always Sunny when they go for the bank loan, and all of a sudden there's the woman who's the loan manager, and like, can we speak to the real manager? And it's like, oh boy, you know.
I think my favorite thing about that email study, though, is that it started as an accident. The guy was like, why is everyone suddenly so mean to me? And he realized that his email signature had switched over to his female counterpart.
Yep. Oh, my God.
He's like, huh. It's kind of like a plot shield. Men just walk through life with a plot shield.
I call it, I'm skeptical of, this is a bag of worms. I'm skeptical of ever calling anything a privilege, because there's a whole bunch of people who are like, my life sucks. You call this privilege? You know? Like, so I get that, you know, like, yeah. A dude who's 2 missed paychecks away from like total poverty is not going to think of himself as privileged, right? But there is a world of the benefit of doubt that a lot of people are extended, that should be extended to everybody. Like, that privilege should be everybody's. Like, I should be able to run down the street wearing a hoodie and nobody thinks I'm getting away with something. You know, nobody tries to stop me. Yeah. You know? And
just getting away with comfort.
Just getting away with comfort, you know? And I'm like, I think about these a fair deal of time when, like, you describe like this the asshole behavior, the can I speak to an expert? I'm like, man, that benefit of the doubt, you know, extended that benefit of the doubt, you know, nobody, like, you know, like nobody ever really has funny question so much, you know. Yeah. And that's the stuff.
It's
really
funny,
challenging, you know.
It's funny in Guitar Gear because everyone already does that to everybody in Guitar Gear. Like, nobody gets the benefit of the doubt, so everyone thinks that, oh, that's just everybody's an asshole to everybody in Guitar Gear culture. But they don't get, like, women still get it worse, man.
Yeah.
It's hard to imagine that women get it worse.
Yeah, it's this is the.
No one's offering to rearrange your pedal board for you at your own show if you're a guy. No one does that.
Well, it happens, but way less often. That would be my thing. Like, neither of these is a privileged position. It's more like, this is what we should get, and this is shit, and this is extra shit. You know, like this.
Yeah, there's the extra shit,
and like that's the extra shit. You know, like, I mean, I remember when I toured and gigged, you know, way back when musicians were allowed to make money. 90s.
What?
Yeah, wow. But like I've had coworkers like ask me, like, what was it like when record labels gave you money? And I'm like, I always laugh about it. It's like, it's crazy in hindsight. But I just do remember even back then, and this was early waves of boutique, like super early waves, where like, you know, when there was Analog Man, there was Full Tone, there was Zvex, there was Prescription, and there was basically not much else, you know?
Armadillo?
I don't even remember Armadillo. I remember Diaz made some stuff. Menatone,
maybe that's something
like you saw a couple Menatone pedal stuffs. Like Mesa was a boutique amp company at that time, you know, like that's how long ago it was. And I can remember like early days.
Oh, how times have changed!
I know, right? And I remember I would have dudes come by and like see my pedal board, and this was like, I had a pedal board. This is crazy, but I had a pedal board before Pedal Train was out. right? Like it's crazy to me because I like them. You'd go to there was a guy in Richmond who made pedal boards, and they were kind of like that pre-salvage kind of thing with like a wood case and all this shit, and it was heavy as fuck, and it was brutal. And you're carrying, like, I'm sitting there, I have 6 pedals on the thing, and the thing weighs like 30 pounds. And it was like, but I would have dudes like come by and like, so you don't use a fuzz? You know, all this shit is fucking with your tone. You know, it's like, man, there's always been that guy. There's always been that guy.
Yeah.
He's just like sitting there.
You know, true bypass.
Yep, not true. And then he's standing 3/4 of the way back.
That was way before true bypass conversations.
Oh, this was true bypass conversations. We had those.
Oh, was it?
Yep.
Oh my God.
Yep.
Oof. Duh.
I mean, I don't want blame, but the person I really think Full Tone was who put that into like people's lexicon. You know, they're so they banged the drum so hard for it. You know, but I remember like
who
Full Tone. You know, he who shall not be named now.
Oh, he's yeah.
But he did. And then you'd have the guy after he'd scolded your pedal board. This is still the guy. Like, I'm like, he's standing 3/4 of the way back in the venue with his arms folded the whole time.
Yep.
See, there's a great joke about like a president of Atlantic Records showing up, like walking with Chuck Klosterman or someplace somewhere, and there's a receptionist wearing the Led Zeppelin t-shirt. He's got like the long hair, and the Atlantic Records guy turns to the reporter and goes, I went to high school with that guy, and like walks past him. But of course he didn't, because the guy at the reception is like 20 or 21, and the guy from Atlantic is like in his 50s or whatever. And it's like, I went to school with that guy. You know, like we all went to school with the guy in the Led Zeppelin shirt.
School with that guy.
Yeah, who drove around in a Monte Carlo or some giant overpowered car. And we all have played the gig to the dude with his arms folded 3/4 of the way back in the venue, shaking his head the whole time.
I still think my favorite person is the person who's trying to talk to you about your setup while you're trying to set up. All right, man. Just I'm working, trying to do something. Can you just? I'm like trying to like figure out why I'm not getting a signal pass through or something. Like I'm flustered or whatever. And the guy's like, "Is that a halberd? Oh, those are cool. What do you think about that? You know, the new one has that toggle so you can go between 2 different tones." Like, shut up!
I'm working over here.
I'm trying to figure out why I don't have any reverb right now.
Or they're making suggestions. You know, you really need an RC booster, and you're like, it's not going to happen now.
No, I have my germanium boost right there. It's fine. You know, germanium boosts are really unpredictable. Not this one. Watch my demo. Fuck off.
Right?
You know what you really need is a Barber Effects gain changer. It's as if like the gear page manifested itself in a human.
I might have ordered one of those yesterday.
Let me just open the gain portal and pull one out. You know, and here it is. There it is. I changed to satisfy your desires. You know, right now. Yeah. Yeah, there's always the commentary, and yet, son of a, if I'm to be honest and not a hypocrite, let's be honest, we've all judged bands before they've even played a note based on sometimes on the gear. Like we've all done it. Like we've all.
I kind of judge people if they're like got pedals falling off of their board. I'm like,
try.
That's
just
try.
I was watching an opening act. I can't remember the name of the act to save my life, but there's 2 boards on stage. One was this massive rig that looked like it needed like 4 Zumas to power it.
Yep.
100-pound pedal board, just absolutely massive. The other one was literally like a chunk of 2x4. You could still see that they had like sawed off with a handsaw, but never like sanded the edge. and like 4 Behringer pedals. And I'm like, all right, how are these 2 guys in the same band?
Yep.
I just kind of assumed it was going to be garbage. They get it there. Believe it or not, the giant, you want to know who had the big pedal board? It's the bass player. And the dude with the 4 Behringer pedals just fucking ripped.
That's awesome.
His tone actually sounded decent. He made it work. It wasn't like phenomenal. I mean, I think they were playing at El Corazon. So, I mean, small room, awkward shape, whatever. It's just loud, noisy.
Nothing, yeah.
And no, they played a really great set. I wish I could remember the band name for the life. I can't remember for the life of me anymore. It was just one of those. I was full on like, yep, no, this is gonna be an opening act. Maybe I should just go pay $15 for a beer and sit in the back.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah,
no, you're glad.
That was good.
Glad you stayed. I'm skeptical whenever I see dudes who are too excited about their gear and they're talking about their gear to people in the front row and they're pointing at their shiny new gear and they're pointing at. I'm like, oh boy, like this, because I don't know. Like I think at that point, if you're rehearsed enough and you have chosen your stuff and you've like picked it out for this show and you're ready, like you're almost like, if you're really prepared, you're not even thinking about the gear anymore. Except if it works or not, like it's like, boom, like, man, this is just something that makes things repeat. And this is just something that makes it noisy.
Yeah.
This is something that and this is just something for that chorus. And this is something for that intro of the part. Like, it's just like, it's just stuff I have to execute, whereas like, guys are like super like, check it out, I just got this, oh it's so nice, blah blah blah, and they're showing off their new guitar and put so when they're talking about it, and I'm like, man, this is gonna be, this person's obviously in the honeymoon period, and this has got me nervous, like I'm skeptical at that point. And then there's also all the dead giveaways and stuff where you're like, okay, I know the style of this band, obviously from the gear, I mean, you must see this when you go to Nashville, you must see this a ton, Emily, where it's like someone wrote to me and I was laughing because where I am, this is still kind of like a pretty cool thing to have, but someone wrote this thing and it got a bunch of likes, and I was trying to remember myself, but they said, if I see another Butterscotch Relic Telecaster in Nashville, I'm going to scream. Like,
I mean, it's the guitar. What are you going to do? It's the, sorry, it's the guitar. What the fuck are you going to do about it? Like, damn.
But at the same,
it's like saying, it's
There's a game I like to play where one day I'll open up, go to Pedalboard of the Days page and just go through the pedal boards. I'll take one look and decide on the spot, where are they on a Sunday morning? And then I'll go to the page for whoever owns the board and see if it's like 1 Corinthians 2:13 or whatever verse that they've got at top. Like, yep, there we go.
That's a lot of them.
I recommend it. Like, play the game. Like, just choose 10. Throw them like at a dartboard. Choose 10 and see like how many out of 10 you can get.
I saw somebody who on Twitter said something like, "Sorry, Juliet Baker, your pedalboard is way too Christian," and she was like, "Guilty AF."
I mean, she's very religious. Do people forget that?
But I just thought it was also pretty funny because I'm like, actually, hers is her. I think of hers as not particularly Christian because there's weird loopings involved, and there's like weird routings and there's stuff to keep track of, and this only works if this works, like whoa, that's a little nuance there, like.
I think it's hard to come out of Memphis or Nashville and not have like at least some CCM influences on your pedal board. Because we had Katie Kirby on the show.
I was about to say that.
She's not even like, she's not religious, but she has some very like CCM pedal board leanings. Like she has a Julia. That's her favorite pedal of all time. Is the Walrus Julia.
And it's cool.
Well,
And she's like, what are some other chorus pedals? And we're like, Somersault.
There's somersaults. There's not really a ton off the top of my head. Like, I mean, Old Blood Noise does the myriad, which is cool. The myriad mode one, and I'm blanking on its name now. Reflector. Yeah, I call it myriad because that's the mode I would use in it all the time. But yeah, there's just it's a funny thing. There's just not a ton. And the Julia, first time I played the Julia, I'm like, yeah, that's pretty right, dude. Like that's a pretty right chorus, you know. But yeah, I was struggling with it. We were laughing about this when we were recording some stuff with some rockers here in Columbia, and I was like, it took me a hard time to wrap my head around sort of the indie rock that comes from the Carolinas and the South, because I was used to a certain kind of indie rock from like Virginia and Maryland on up, which is sort of the lodestar of that stuff still seems to be Fugazi, right? And it's sort of like punkish or gnarly, and it's like atonal at times, and there's like this trashy quality to it. And then when I came to the South, I was like, I was like trying to describe it to someone. I was like, the thing I couldn't get past in a lot of the indie rock for a long time in the South is the earnestness, right? There's not that cynical kind of thing, but there's like this earnestness. And we were talking about it, and a lot of it comes from, like, a lot of indie rockers come from CCM roots, you know, like, and their lodestar is almost more someone like Bazan or like Pedro the Lion or like Me Without You, or a lot of these bands that sort of come from that kind of like we were laughing about, it's like a little bit the preacher's son kind of thing. And it's that earnestness that was really tough for me to wrap my head around, because I was used to like this kind of real cynical snark, you know, that the worldview of it, you know, is different, but also like how melodically constructed it was. Like even the indie rock is polished, you know, maybe almost more polished than like that Sunny Day Real Estate descent of things, as opposed to like an Albini kind of approach.
Right.
Like
you get a lot of that up here too. Weirdly. Yeah. Like I think that Mars Hill was just so big up here that those influences are still being really felt. Because a lot of the people who kind of grew up going to live music as like teenagers, that was how they went to live music. It was like Mars Hill churches. Like even like Jessica Dobson is a great example of that.
Yeah. It's
a lot of earnestness.
It's always strange because I work in corporate AV up here. And so talking with other people in the corporate AV world even, and realizing how many of the people that I work with, like in my network, used to work in the Mars Hill network, and the stories that I've heard are like, whoa. So between them, some of my musician friends are like, wait, you used to play in a Mars Hill? What? I had no idea. And just how deep that goes in this area is really strange for someone who transplanted here shortly after the fall of Mars Hill.
Yeah, that's interesting because I remember when the fallout happened, but the same like that. Yeah, I remember reading about the different fallout around Mars Hill and stuff. But I'm fascinated how these things end up seeding a whole bunch of musicians in a way that's different than it used to be, where people formed, terrible high school bands, as opposed to through these praise and worship kind of things where there's a certain, I don't know, so maybe a certain expectation of discipline. I was curious about that. If there's like more of expectation, like you're to play this and play this right? Whereas I sort of,
well, I mean, larger churches expect you to have your music memorized and it's a different song every week. Versus, when I was in high school band, we played like 5 songs, and sure, we had those memorized, but they're like 3-chord songs. And then when I was playing actively for churches, even on a smaller level, having that expectation of you have that music memorized, you're not playing with chord charts, no reference, you've got it down the entire set, and the set's different every week with songs that bleed into each other and coordinating with I don't know, that there's a level of production value that seems to be built into a culture of striving for excellence that I think is interesting.
Yeah. I mean, because
Memorization costs extra when I play. I tell people that up front.
That's a good way of putting it. You know, like if you're not going to hand me charts, then in advance. Oh yeah, but it's fair. But that's a fair point. Like if you're expected to learn this stuff and not
memorize it, it takes a lot more time. Like I can if I have a chart, I can do it and figure it out in 2 hours. But if I don't have a chart, I have to learn it by ear and then I have to memorize it.
Yep.
That's 10, 12, 15, 20 hours. Like that's a lot of time. It takes me a long time to memorize stuff. For a gig I'm only going to play once.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
No. It costs extra.
Yeah. Make it rain on that, Because I was fascinated. I'm curious if you guys have seen this trend as well. I've noticed in Colombia here, there aren't so many, or there are bands, but it's different. Like I came from this band background where it's like you're in a band and you're in that band and that's the band you're in. And you guys, you put the batch of you together and you write songs kind of collaboratively, and then you'd fight about who gets credit or whatever, and you kind of succeed and fail as like this entity, right? And
yeah,
I was talking about this, and this customer of mine who's in I was like, how are you in like 4 bands? He's like in 4 bands. And he's like, I was describing to him, I was like, I was describing what I was going through, and he just said, ain't nobody got time for that anymore. Like, he was shaking his head about that. I'm like, what? But you're in 4 bands. He's like, yeah, but really what it is he's in 4 bands frequently sharing
4 solo projects.
Exactly. They're sharing a lot of the same members, but this one is this guy's project where he's written these songs, and then everybody just has to learn that guy's songs. And then he plays this. And then there's this girl's songs, and everybody learns this girl's songs, and they're playing. It's like, it was interesting to me how much of this becomes really leader driven, like really chief driven, as opposed to like everybody kind of collaborating and sorting it out. As I was describing this, it was funny. He's just shaking his head like you got 6 hours to sit there and like bash out a bunch of riffs and everybody fight about how they fit together. Like, wow, Meanwhile, he's sorting that stuff out, recording. He's like blah blah blah. It's like, did you guys have Pro Tools back then? I was like, no, we were lucky to have a 4-track. He's like, see now. Like he's sending people like, here are my Logic or GarageBand demos, and learn it.
Yeah, it used to be you really had to have things ironed out beforehand, and now you can experiment a lot more on your own, even send them to everybody and be like, even in GarageBand, be like, okay, now here's some just riff that the algorithm made up, or here's some royalty free thing that I got in Presonus Studio One. Do something kind of like that, but different. And so I play bass in a project called Jerf. It's a solo project. But it's kind of so the guy, he's a great songwriter, and he just did everything on his album pretty much except for the drums. So I just went in, I learned the bass parts, and I'll write bass parts for new stuff ostensibly. Sunday Crush is less of a solo project, but it's still really Jenna's band. So we're doing more collaborative writing now, but when I came in, I was just really a hired gun for an album that had already been released. So now we're doing writing together, but it is a lot more time consuming versus if she could just if she just sat down and wrote songs and told us to like come up with some parts and work them together, that would be faster. It'd be less fun.
Yeah. And there's a different kind of fun where a whole bunch of people have I think it's a different kind of fun where a whole bunch of people have a creative stake in it.
Yep.
And I think there's...
So those people all have to be able to get along with each other and have good communication skills. And that's for every member you add, the harder it is to ensure that a new member will work with everybody else equally.
Yeah.
Well, every band has expendable members, pretty much, except Queen.
It's a Queen. the Beatles thing I think is fascinating. When I've been watching people Get Back, and they're just so blown away by how like kind of even at the end of their ropes, how collaborative they were, you know, and they're sitting there chatting and just throwing ideas back and forth. And that's been a fun takeaway for me, because watching us boomers or Gen Xers watch it, we're like, yeah, okay, that's wow. Like we're seeing the apex version of what we all sometimes had little tastes of. And then, but watching younger people watch it, they're just like, yo, what? Like, yeah, like, you know what I'm saying? Where there's like, it's almost like, what would happen now if McCartney was sitting there working on Get Back? Like, would he have just garage banded it and like just figured it all?
Yeah.
You know?
I don't know. I probably. Yeah. I don't know if they would have done it in the room together like that. Because I can't. It's hard to imagine other people just sitting there patiently watching him do that.
No. And it's.
But and then there's people who thrive in actual like group collaboration, and then there are people who like just thrive in working off by themselves for a while, doing something. And different days, sometimes you want to be in a group, and sometimes different days just things come together more organically. I like coming in with ideas, because then again, like when I think about the things that I've done with Sunday Crush that have been like best with the band, it's stuff that came together in the room together with the rest of the band. So, and not the stuff that I brought in necessarily. Like that was fun for warm-ups, but ultimately, what I did there in the group with them performed best and resonated best with them, probably because they were part of it.
Well, I mean, I think I could break it down, like to define some terms. There's two different roles that I'm hearing here, and one is being a musician and one is being an artist. Artist is where you're contributing a lot more, and musician is where you're just there to play the music. I don't think either of those are inherently bad. I think there's a time and place for both of those, and that even one individual shouldn't shoehorn themselves in just one or the other. And so, when like CCM, like you're almost always just going to be the musician that shows up and plays exactly how it was on the album, and then you go home and take a very long nap because you were at church at 6 a.m. on your weekend. So,
do you find you guys write differently or remember writing differently when there was a drummer present?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not used to writing around drums, so when I do, it's very different. We've been writing a lot, just having the drummer start with something, and that
really is a fun thing, because we're so in a pop history lexicon, we're so used to like the melodic instruments or whatever, or the ones that are tonal, setting that definition for us. Like start with the riff, right? Or play a hook. Right. And those things so define like your key. They're so define a lot of rhythmic things. They just define a lot of, they sort of set the decision tree for what happens melodically. But yeah, I miss like kicking things off with a drummer, And
I think that's fun. And I think that's more important in music is the drums. Well, it's funny to me when you think about how like music was considered like things like drums were banned at the Grand Ole Opry until when were drums allowed at the Grand Ole Opry? They were banned for a long time because it was considered pop music. And there's a lot of old country songs that sounds like there's drums, but there's not. It's just the back beat on the bass and then the palm muting on the guitar.
Wow, that's wild to think that a trap drummer was so associated as like a kit. So a kit drummer was just like anathema. It's very strange, But I am thinking about it now. I'm thinking about all those like kind of old timey bands where they sit around like around one microphone, right? And you're like, well, hell, like. that might not have been possible. They might not have even been able to get the volume over a drummer back then. Yeah,
well, if you had a big band like Bob Wills, who was the first person to use the to use a drum set on the Opry in 44. I mean, yeah, you definitely had the volume, but drummers can play pretty quietly. They had amplification, like ample amplification. 67, it looks like, is when a full set of drums was used on the Opry for the first time. 67, because before then it was considered pop music.
Mm-hmm. They had amplification made by people who hated rock and roll. Yeah.
So it's funny you mention rhythm as being such an important aspect, because one of the things, because I was a drummer first before I was a guitar player, and one of the genres that's always captivated me on that level has been like hip hop and rap. Mm-hmm. It starts with a beat, and then everything else around it revolves around that rhythm. And I find that infuses the music with just a level of energy. There's a vibe, there's an energy, this is how things are going now, mm-hmm. that I don't necessarily find in other music. And one of the things that I love when I listen to music is music that's quote unquote energetic. And what always drives me nuts is what makes something energetic as a drummer, because you can play a fast song and it can just feel lifeless. Yep. And rhythm's always will always be something that fascinates me to that extent. But if you're trying to write a song without a drummer, it totally changes the dynamic for me. So
one of my favorite drummers is this guy named Kevin Murphy, who's Nashville based as well. He's has Big Right Foot as his Instagram, and he's a hilarious guy. He's played with a lot of rock bands. He was with Tonic for a while. He was with a country artist named Randy Houser for a while. He's like he played in 90s bands, like this 90s band called Egypt for a while, and Earth to Andy for a while. And he's an old school Virginia 90s guy who went Nashville and rock and does all this stuff. And he's just like extremely opinionated and funny and difficult to agree with on everything, but he's an awesome drummer. He's one of these guys who just destroys kick pedals, and it's like his ferocious player.
Big right foot,
Big right foot. But he's someone you would love chatting with Emily. Like he's just also incredibly contrary about a lot of stuff, Nashville-esque and stuff. But he had a great phrase once I can't stop thinking about, which is he said, "If it doesn't make you want to fight, fuck, or dance, it's bad drumming."
That just sounds like bad music too, but I was that.
Like, damn. But he sort of summed it up.
That's it.
Like he was like, I'm sorry. Like somebody who does like all kinds of crazy tricks, he's like, not a good drummer. He's like, Meg White, look at that audience. Like he's like, look at that, look at those White Stripes footage and look at that audience and what's happening. Like, if that's not good drumming, then how is that audience doing that? You know? And I'm like,
yep.
He's like, it's almost like he's like, it's just.
I want to fight people who say Meg White's not a good drummer. That's what I want to do.
But he just he drops it on them because it's like, well, what about this? And he's a guy who used to do marching band stuff and all those exercises. So he's used to he's like, you can talk about all the technical hoodads with me. Like, he can do it. But if it doesn't do these three things, it's bad drumming. And I saw some stuff he did with using Pro Tools for drum instruction. I thought was brilliant, where Murphy would multi-track a drummer and they'd be doing shuffles and he could show them no. Here's what's happening. Like, you need to move this ahead of the beat, and this centered on the beat, and this behind the beat. And he could show them. And I was like, this is brilliant, because so often when we think about DAWs and we're recording with Ableton and with Logic and Pro Tools and all this, people kind of try to lock, and they start to think like they're doing an Excel spreadsheet where they're locking to the, the cells. Really?
Yeah.
Yep.
And I'm like, oh my God, I hate this. It's like you hear those guys who then quantize Van Halen on YouTube, and it's hilarious. It's so bad. And then you're like, oh, this is rough, you know? But then Murphy, I was like, this is brilliant, because he's like, he can hear he can hear what the guy is not doing right. And then he's like, hold on, let me
Yep.
put it into a DAW. Let me put it in here, and I can show you against the grid, like where you're not centered or where you're doing this or where you're doing this. How these need to like roll around the beat, you know. As he's like, right now, it's like you're too stiff here, you're too loose here. Like it's like a combination of these things. It's pretty damn brilliant, you know.
Like you do need a bit of a human element in there, otherwise it could sound sterile. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Tom Petty.
Questlove always said one of the things he loved about Prince's drumming was that Prince would slow down and speed up. You can't. No one's tried to quantize Prince's drumming, thankfully, because that would probably not be fun either.
I mean,
Tom Petty had that.
And even with.
Go on. I'm sorry, Andrew.
No, you're good. It's especially with drumming though. It's not even just about speeding up and slowing down. It's even just like within a phrase. You're within a measure on your backbeat. If your backbeat's on, or if it's slightly behind or slightly in front, makes a huge difference. Even if you're quote unquote like if you're still playing at the same speed, just where you're landing that within the measure makes a world of a difference, because you can go without having to fully swing a beat or syncopate a song. You can give it a little bit of a swing feel by just playing slightly behind the beat. And that makes a world of a difference in how a song sounds, just by the drummer being slightly behind, but still staying at a steady pace. And that's one of my favorite things I learned when I did jazz band in high school. And that was one of the things that the teacher would always yell, is like, "You're too fast." I'm like, "But I'm playing to the metronome." I was like, "Stay behind the beat. You swing it harder."
Yes.
And
that's awesome.
I can hear
swing it, white boy.
I can hear Mr. P, this bald white dude in his 20s, just yelling, "Swing it harder!" like across like up.
Well, that's one of the things I liked about the snare trap, that Ranger FX pedal, is you could set it to play behind the beat a little bit.
That's clever. That's very clever.
It's a good pedal.
I did jazz improv in high school, and I remember laughing once I got just completely lost, where I'm like, I was trying to follow the chord charts. I'm like, oh God, C sharps at 13, blah, 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 and I just got lost as hell. Like I was in like, woo! Like the train missed me, right? And I was doing a lead break, and I just started like, fuck it. And I just started just doing unison bends of taking a D and bending it to a high E, where I'm like on the 12th and 15th, right? And going, whack, 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 whack. And I'm like, I'm going to have to do this for the next 16, I've got a while to do this. Remember, I'm just going whack whack, and then the thing's going ba 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 da da ba da dee 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 ba ba da, and I'm like whack 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 whack, and the guy running at the jazz band leader looks over and goes, "Nice tension."
I meant to do that.
And I'm like, all I know is I'm going to have to end on a C sharp. Okay, like that's what I knew. I can see. I can see down the line, like, I'm going to end on C sharp, and we're going to be good.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And the Golden Girl is out.
Ooh.
Golden Girl.
Boy, howdy.
So, this episode of the Get Offset podcast is sponsored by Caroline Guitar Company, because Philippe did me a huge favor. He brought one of the ugliest guitars in America back to life. Thank you.
And what a life that guy. What a life that has. Look at that.
Oh my God, it's so beautiful. So for those who forgot, this used to be a Gatlinburg fever dream of a guitar. I called it the Cloud Titty guitar.
This deal keeps getting worse and worse on Cloud Titty.
Wow. Andrew, are you okay?
No, I'm good there, but props to Philippe. I've altered the deal. Pray I don't alter it any further.
So he used to have this terrible airbrush job on it that had these ladies, these cloud trucker ladies, shooting out lightning out of their assholes. But now it is this gorgeous, gorgeous gold. It has the bead bender. I'm so happy with it.
Oh my goodness. It looks fantastic. Mine is at the workspace, but I'm going to send a picture to y'all to insert here.
Yes.
Just hold up your arms like this, and we'll Photoshop it. How about that?
I'm not that good at Photoshop.
Now, Boot at B.A. Ferguson Guitars did the refin work, and he did it similar to his flyweights. So it's sort of a matte finish. I think of it as almost like a nicer version of the finish you used to see Fender do on the Highway 1s and Californias in the early 2000s. Where it was just like this razor thin lacquer finish that's supposed to wear easier. I'm laughing because I literally, as I've set mine down and then accidentally knocked it over, it's already started to put chips in the corners.
Oh, yeah, I have some chips over here already. It's going to age nicely.
It's going to age in a hurry.
I'm so excited. I'm excited. It's beautiful. And we both got gold because we were talking. Because you saw the picture I posted on Instagram right after I bought it, and you messaged me. About how G&Ls are great guitars. Like, because I wasn't going to buy this until I plugged it in. And it sounded so good. I was like, damn it.
It sounded so good and had that V-bender, and it's the right kind of Telecaster, and it also had the scariest guitar finishing I've ever seen. Like
it was horrible. It was so bad. And the paint job even went under the pickguard, which was signed by Brooks and Dunn. Don't forget about that part.
What I find tough is also like there's a certain kind of tastelessness that's artistic and can kind of be provocative. Yeah. And this wasn't it. Like this.
No.
Like, this was just tacky.
Yeah, and it's really tacky and also like kind of an tacky, but also amateurish too. Like it's like that Woody Allen quote, like such terrible food and such small portions, you know.
Yeah.
And I remember Boot and I were talking about refinishing my G&L, which the problem with a lot of these, like, when is your G&L from? Did you get the year on yours?
They just said late 90s or early 2000s. Yep. I think the vibe was it's like 16 to 20 years old.
Yeah, mine is in 96, and they had like this really thick poly finish on it that mine got beat up, and it did not look cool. Like it looked like this just looks like abuse. And I had a guy who was like, I can fix this, but then it's just going to look like a bird shit on your guitar. Because if you drop fill it, and then it's just going to be like these clear drop fills that are clearly not blended in with the rest of the finish.
Yep.
Right? So I was like, just strip this down. Boot had done a PRS for me like this. And just strip it down and throw finish on it. And when you and I were like, let's do gold. I was like, yeah, we'll have golden girls. So 2 golden G&Ls.
Oh, golden girls.
Yep.
And then the timing. What a comedic timing. God damn it, Betty White.
Right when People puts out her 100th birthday magazine. What a gag. That's
so fucking funny.
I looked over at Melissa and I said, okay, like I'm not ready to accept that she's passed. And so for now, I'm just going to hope that she is taking gross advantage of the fact she's the only person in the world that could fake her own death and we could forgive her for it. And she's just going to walk out onto a stage for the screening for her 100th birthday and just blow everybody's minds.
But like, People put out the magazine 100th birthday. It was New Year's Eve, so she's getting like the most toasts of anybody in the world to her. That
she's like, I'm going to head out.
That's the world's best Irish exit ever from a party.
Yep.
We need to rename the Irish exit the Betty White, where you just leave.
Yeah.
You know, peace out.
Toodles.
I've had enough.
I love everybody doing I love everybody like doing the math. Like, okay, she lived through 24 leap years, so I think we can say that she lived 100 years because that's 24 extra days, and she was 17 days away from being 100. I don't think she gives a shit.
Yes.
Like what a legacy though that you live to be 99. You died at 99, and people think you died too soon. Like, wow.
Yeah, that's a long, full life, and
Yeah.
And we got to tell Betty White we loved her while she was alive, which was awesome. We didn't have to.
Yeah, not a lot of people get their flowers.
Yeah, make sure she gets her flowers.
Did we mention this episode of the Get Offset podcast is sponsored by the Caroline Guitar Company?
Hold on for a sec. I snuck off for a second, and now I'm back. The CC.
This episode of the Get Offset podcast was sponsored by Caroline Guitar Company.
Thanks.
This is my second Hawaiian pizza.
Have you compared it to a Hawaiian yet?
No, I've been a little busy, but hopefully I'll have some time to play guitar today, depending on when an article I have to write is due, which I need to check on.
Awesome.
Check on that. So hopefully, but I did them in stereo for that Christmas Time is Here.
I love it.
Which was really funny.
And that dope-ass PS3 that you have. That thing is so cool. God,
I am so stoked. I got this thing for like $100.
I love me some.
It's a little. It's look how so grizzled. I do kind of worry about the innards, just seeing how rusty it is, but and it works. It works for now. $100.
Oh, it's a pink label. Look at that.
Is that good?
I just love me some Y2K Boss.
One of those Easter egg things.
Y2K Boss. I love it.
What'd you say, Andrew?
Y2K Boss. I want a PS3, I want an RV3, and a PN2, man. Y2K Boss, dude.
Oh, Andrew has my old PN2.
Oh, you have the PN2?
But I told him if he sells it, he has to offer it to me first for what I charged him for it, which was not a lot of money.
I think I sold a PN2. I'm pretty sure.
He's not allowed to flip it.
I'm pretty sure I sold a. I may be remembering this wrong. Either I sold one or Matt Hoops and I. Yes. Oh my God. And I love the solo cup, the topper you put on there. Gorgeous. I feel like I sold a PN2.
Andrew makes those toppers. Oh,
yeah,
did you?
I'm pretty sure I did because I had an extra one and then I put it for sale and I feel like Matt Hoops got it, but I might be remembering it wrong. But yeah,
Nice.
It's like, yeah, it's so 90s Y2K, those three pedals. In my brain, they're all like, that's the Boss I know and love, is that. And then my other fetish is for the line selector, So that's the other one. The LS2, brilliant. I mean, it's basically kind of the root of this. It's not dissimilar from this thing by Old Blood Noise. This thing is great. I love this thing. The Signal Blender.
Signal
Yeah.
blender?
This thing is.
Yep. I need to get me one of those.
This thing is useful. I'm going to do an experiment later today. I'm excited about.
Yes.
Paul David on his YouTube channel did a thing about the Hallelujah guitar sound, how it's a mix of short and long reverb. It's great. It's a really cool video. And he did it with different amps and multiple things. But what I was tempted to do is put something like a Supermoon or a Dark Star in one, and then a Meteor in the other,
Yeah.
and then do short, long reverb in
Oh.
mono with
Yep.
a single blender, and see if we can get that same kind of thing. This thing is great. I got one for a friend of mine,
Nice.
for a bass player, for a longtime bandmate and friend who plays bass. I got one of these for him for Christmas as well, and this thing, it's just cool. Like, it just does it really well. This is a lot like the LS2, but more, because you're not tied to like the mode switch on the LS2. This is like the LS2 but evolved. And I
have the Klein bottle, and it's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's maybe a little too much happening. I don't know what to do with it. But yes, on that note, what else? What's else coming up with Caroline Guitar Company that you can tell us about? That you can shout
thanks. The big things this year we are going to do. There are two things that I'm excited about early for this year. One is we're going to do a wider release of Crom, which is the pedal we did. I think did you get a Crom? I think you did get a Crom, didn't you?
I got a Crom. It's over here. I haven't demoed it yet, but it
is very intense. The story behind that is we got the long story about it is that we got one of our old Olympia pedals back that was broken. This guy's like, it's broken, it's not working. I was like, okay, and I stepped on it, and I was like, oh my god, this thing is so broken, and it's obvious to switch, because what would happen is I'd switch it on, and it'd either be like halfway on or nothing, right? Halfway on or nothing, halfway on or nothing. So I'm like, okay, it's the switch. I go through, I clean up a few things. The thing's a roaring beast again. We send it back to the guy, nothing. Nothing comes of it. He messages us back, and he's like, what the hell did you all do to my pedal? I'm like, what are you talking about? I fixed it. Like, you're welcome. And he's like, this is awful. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, this thing just sounds like this fuzzy, loud, like, pedal. Like, what do you mean? It's like, it was working sometimes and it wasn't. And it hit me. I'm like, oh my God. Like, the sound he liked was like a weird broken thing.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, how are we going to get this back? Like, because it was doing like this kind of broken-y thing. And we figured out a way. He sent it back. We found a way to get it. And then I was laughing. I was like, okay, we need to be able to get that half-gain, brighter, broken-y thing, and this. And so that's what Crom is. So in one mode, it's similar to what the guy had when it was down, and in the other mode it's opened up. Like the turbo on is basically like the full on, like we are raging and going again. And the trick we found with it was with the tweed amp tone control in the middle. The mountain control kind of helps us do that both too. So we'll do Crom as a wider thing. We've had people ask us for that, and I'm pumped about it. And I'm pleasantly surprised. This is going to sound like a weird pet peeve, but I'm pleasantly surprised when we released Crom how little of the we didn't get too many people having to say, and the lamentations of the women, like, I was like, thank you.
Not too much barbarian.
Yeah, we got enough barbarian stuff, but it's sort of like Conan the Barbarian is kind of like Spinal Tap. You should know there's more lines in the movie than these go to 11, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah, you should at least know it's blacker than black.
I like it. My personal favorite is, what's the difference between golf and mini golf? And the guy goes, the balls are smaller. So,
oh my God, I like shit sandwich myself.
What's the it's like he's tied up, on a cross, bare naked with these scantily clad women. Like, what's more offensive about that than smell the glove? Duke Fay, tied up. Or Fred Willard. Fred Willard is unbelievable in Spinal Tap too. Like the whole, bless his heart, and then like him, like, so we'll get you guys on at like 900 hours, and then at 1100 hours we'll be done with this. It'll all be over with. And then Derek Smalls is like, so we're planning for 600 hours.
It's a perfect
the military time thing is so great, and also the bad math, like he doesn't do the math right or whatever, and like Spinal Tap. Yeah, so Conan has a bunch of stuff like this, but we were watching. I was laughing about this. Conan the Barbarian. I've definitely fallen down a hole with it. Sidebar. I won't go too long on this, but I was reading something somebody said where like the Coen brothers based Walter Sobchak from Real Big Lebowski on John Milius, the guy who wrote and directed Conan the Barbarian. Like they basically like point by point, Sobchak is John Milius, the guy who wrote Conan the Barbarian. And from what I've heard, they and their friends, like Bruce Campbell and a lot of those people who have all been friends together, all watched Conan the Barbarian and kind of thought like it's like they kind of took it the way I might, which is like this is almost like a parody of like this like mindset, like it's so over the top. I must I must kill the snake god and do all this stuff, and you're like, the only thing, the dad points the sword and it's like this you can trust, it's just sort of like these it's so over the top. They thought it was hilarious, and like John Milius was like dead serious the whole time. Like he's like, this is like he thought this was like his manifesto.
Oh,
yeah. And so like they're like, oh, so when they wrote Sobchak, it's like Sobchak is dead serious about all the stuff he's like saying all the time about like just everything. So but they love it.
Never underestimate the confidence of mediocrity.
A mediocre white man. Oh, Lord, in 2022, give me the confidence of a mediocre
Say what you
man.
Want about the tenets of National Socialism, but at least it's an ethos. Like, one of those amazing lines. Nihilism, fuck me. So it's like, but then we had a customer who was like, man, I love this Schwarzenegger kick that you guys have been on with your brand. I'm like, what? And he goes like, yeah, Olympia, like Mr. Olympia. And then you have the Terminator 2 quotes on the inside of your megabyte boards. And then you have Crom. And I'm like, oh yeah, we meant to do that. Like,
oh, that's
it's that moment where you realize that your hobbies have gone way too far into infiltrating your life.
Yes, like it's like the Schwarzenegger-ness is like there. But the other thing is we're going to do, we leaked a little video of this, but we're finally going to do some kind of phasery vibey thing. We've had our customers ask us for this for years, and we're finally going to do it. We're going to give the people what they want. And we'll do that later this year. We'll figure out exactly when. But I'm 95% in on the prototype. We have like 2 values to change. And I feel really good. And there's been some hilarious during the development of this. I have to admit something. There have been some definite files are in the computer Zoolander moments for me on the engineering front.
Yep.
Working on this one, like where I'm like clearly getting things wrong. Oh yes, Chris Gardner, love it. Number 16 signed on the inside. Yep, and still entirely hand wired on those. Yeah, and so we've been. I'll feel this is a long journey done. Like this is unfinished business. Getting the phasery vibey thing done. And I was explaining it to someone like if people expect it to do like this phaser thing, they're like, fine, I can sell this thing. They're probably going to be disappointed because I'm trying to do this with it, and I think this is cool, and it does a lot of these things that are cool. But if you're like, I think this is a struggle a lot of boutique guys struggle with, where like people are like, well, is this going to do my memory man? I'm like, no, like
you have a memory man.
You have a memory man. You keep that memory.
Yep,
that exists. You do that, And I think people sometimes get benchmarked against these things. Like I've even been guilty of it. Like the first time I played like the Diamond Memory Lane years ago, I was like, well, this doesn't sound like a memory man, And I'm like, why?
No,
why did I expect that? So we'll be able to put this out, and I think people will think I think people will be excited, and it'll be cool. I'm pumped for it because there's been a lot of times I've been playing around with this thing, and I'm just like, I can't believe this is happening, and I hope people love it as much as I love it.
Well, that's awesome. I'm really excited for that. I hope I get to play it.
You will, and I'm. That's if people like it half as much as I like it, then we're in good shape. you know, 'cause that's the fun of, like, Somersault was that way for me too, where I was like, I got it on the breadboard and I was like, okay, just don't fuck this up. Like, you know, like, don't touch any wires. Like, get the potential. You know, we had a bunch of variable resistors for me to measure like different things. So like I could measure them to get exactly the value right. And I'm like, cut power to this thing and don't touch anything. Just get the values so we can send these and get it right and pin it down exactly where we want it. To the point where like John Cusack, who's done a lot of manufacturing for us on some of the board side, was like, are you sure about these values? And I'm like, I am sure. I am dead sure, you know, but yeah, same kind of thing with this where I'm like, I can't believe it's doing this. I love it. Let's just not screw this up, you know? And that's
Totally.
that's
Nice.
the real excitement for us. But I'm like, and just love it. All of a sudden, I don't know how you're feeling about 2022 already. I'm nervous about, impending apocalypse of the world, but I'm kind of loving playing guitar again. And like, I've gotten kind of weirdly obsessed with like being able to like, between the G&L and my Strat, the other thing the G&L's do fantastically, the legacies, is if you get that tremolo thing set up in tune, you cannot knock that thing out of tune. It is crazy. Like I'm decking it.
Leo did fix some
shit on those guitars. And I'm like, man, I was playing around. I took that thing with me on vacation and I just was like, man, I just need to spend a lot of time learning all the twang bar tricks that I can think of because I was having just a blast, getting back to using a whammy bar again and having fun with it, and that's those are the two big things and more stuff coming, but we're hoping to have those by the first half of this year. And more cool shit, getting into this. And we're moving into a new building. And if you're in Columbia, South Carolina, we're moving in. We're going to be sharing a space with a big recording studio here and a video production team. We are going in on buying a building, which is really exciting.
Ooh,
yes, we're taking over a bunch of square footage and owning a building, and that's its own batch of headaches. And I can't believe I'm spending this much money. And but it's going to be pretty darn exciting. We're all friends. 3 companies are friends, and hopefully we won't not be friends. We'll remain friends, But I feel it's really exciting, and there's some real chances for each of our businesses with this. The video production thing, having a real committed space that's awesome for them to meet with clients, us having a bigger production area, a recording studio and things. A recording studio that's going to have a over 2,000 square foot live room, which is just non-existent.
Wow, that's huge.
That's
holy shit,
bigger than my house.
That's bigger than my house. Yes, also bigger than my house. Wow.
We've been noticing like a lot of places, even a lot of studios that we like, are still tracking drums in rooms that are tiny. They're like, they're just stuck. We're like, imagine the drums and the strings and different stuff you can bring in when you have this big of a live room. And it's like a tall ceiling, thatched live room, big, where you're like, son of a, this could be genuinely awesome. And, more access to guitars and amps and synths and wacky shit than we know what to do with. I'm restoring like an old Russian synthesizer that we got that for the place. I'll be posting pics of this. The thing is crazy. Somebody found it in like an Airbnb or an abandoned house, and they're like, it doesn't belong to anybody. You want it for $70? And I was like, sure. It's a project. And so there's like just wacky fun stuff on those fronts, and learning to create content. I'm still blown away by how good you guys make stuff look and sound. I've been struggling with that. Like, I can't get audio and video synced up very easily. It's a challenge. We're having
I can, yeah, you can use Premiere Pro and then just use the synchronize feature.
That's what I'm starting to realize I'm going to have to do.
Yep.
I'm going to have to spend some coin and do that, but good shit.
Yeah, it's really worth it.
Yep.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I have to go put in some medicated eye drops.
You rule. This has been a blast for me.
You are awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. This has been a lot of fun. Please, everyone, go check out Caroline Guitar Company. Join their email list so you can be the first to hear about their new drops. Check out their pedals. Y'all don't sell direct pedal-wise, but they do sell merch. We do sell merch,
and we occasionally do directs when they're the limited runs for charity and stuff like that. Like that awesome lo-fi shirt, we do direct, and we do drops, the special runs for charity and stuff twice a year. So that's really awesome. Yeah. Donating a bunch of money to Mercy and to the Western Kentucky the Kitchen Fund for disaster relief in Western Kentucky. It felt awesome to be able to write checks and put a chunk of money towards those things because we sell pedals. It's so amazing, good. Like pedals, and yet it's like. It's pretty great. So get to do some good shit. So thank you guys. Great chat.
Thank you. Totally.
Thank you.
Yes. Check us out on Patreon at patreon.com/getoffset. We have merch like Andrew's shirt at getoffsetpodcast.com/shop. Please like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. Please subscribe, review on iTunes and Spotify. Blah, 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 blah. Until next time, thanks for watching. Andrew?
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for understanding. Thanks for being a friend.
My name is Andrew. White.
My name is Emily. That's Philippe. Goodbye.
Bye.